Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Waste of Life podcast series. I'm your host, Malik De Silva from FSLG. I'm a researcher in solid waste management in Sri Lanka, and I'm joined by Professor Nishara Fernando for the second episode of the podcast series, which will be our fourth episode of the podcast series. Professor Fernando, good morning.
Good morning. Good morning, Malik.
Yeah. So then last time we ended our discussion, Professor, by discussing about the key findings of the R4D project, especially citing to the challenges that we identified that exist in the centralized waste management infrastructure in the country. And also we had the opportunity to touch a little bit on the challenges the local councils experience, mainly due to politicization of waste management activities, and then the seva model practiced by the waste management scape in Sri Lanka, and the challenges that the officials in the local councils experience when they try to introduce new laws that would sort of push the waste management model of Sri Lanka towards maybe a profit-based model. So, Professor, I think we have a lot to talk about today, especially because we have had the opportunity to explore the waste management discourse in the country, a very tricky but very intriguing area of exploration for a sociologist. So, sir, maybe we can start the discussion by touching on our key findings of the social discourse.
Yes, Malik, thank you. I think with regard to social discourse, we learned that the discourse in Sri Lanka views waste as a nuisance. So we also revealed that this discourse emanates from colonial laws introduced to the country in the late 1930s. So the local councils have always used a out of sight, out of mind approach towards waste management, dumping waste in less urbanized areas. And when that area becomes urbanized, moving the dumping site to a less populated area. So that has been the practice. But I mean, since I would say since independence, that has been the practice. But later, as a result of urbanization, they had to find dumping sites from remote areas. And now, for example, few incinerators were situated somewhere outside of Colombo, like
Kerala, right?
This was long time back. But
Yes,
later they had to, they had to, shut down these places because because the adjoining areas were, highly populated. So as a result of that, they were forced to shut down.
Yes.
So the point is, now, let me give you one example. The current Karadiana dumping site is an example to this. As all of us know, Burlesgamu, where Karadiana is highly populated area. But earlier, actually, it was a kind of like abandoned, I would say, paddy land.
Yes.
But later that was, filled, and they tried to use it. I think not all, but some places were used for used as garbage dumping site. But that at that time, long time back, this was an unpopulated area. But then later they had to somehow, like they were not in a position to, keep on dumping this garbage into this place, because there were a lot of resistance from the people in the area. Yeah, because a lot of people also, they got land and they constructed houses. So it has become a kind of a residential area. So now they had to find, authorities had to find places even now outside of Colombo. Outside of the Colombo means, like, for example, now Aruakkalu. is one location which is very far from Colombo. So in the recent years, a discourse has emerged where waste is seen as an asset that can generate money and services. I think we, both of us, already went and observed the waste to energy power plant,
Yes, sir.
which is one of the important, I would say, outcomes. Even though people there are a lot of discussions on what you spend and what you get. There's a huge difference. You invest this much of money, but after that, you generate electricity by using mixed waste. But it is not, it has already been started as a pilot project. Now, I mean, we are not in a position to introduce this kind of waste to energy power plant in other areas because, it's very costly. That is but this was, waste identified as a resource, as an asset to generate money. And also at a smaller scale, local councils, as you know, building and managing resource recovery centers to collect and sell economically viable waste. Despite, as you know, this large waste is considered and treated as nuisance and a threat to well-being of the community. Because this is this is one example. As you can remember, once we had a workshop somewhere close to this Karadiana dumping site.
Yes.
And leading politicians from the area, what he said was he used to swim in that lake or river long time back.
Yes, sir.
And he asked the question, what would happen to him if he tried to swim now, right? So he can't imagine the outcome of it, right? That's what he said, right? So you can see the water, the groundwater has already been polluted and unable to use it for any purpose. But so this is the other side of the coin, Malit, which we normally don't like to openly discuss, hidden. But the situation is, as all of us know, it's aggravating, right? Yes,
Yes,
Malit.
sir. So I think you discussed about key important factors that we have identified in the podcast. The discourse analysis, and I think if you had to put a little bit more context into the discourse, we actually, when we did the discourse analysis, we utilized two key data collection methods. One is to actually do a very thorough literature review that date back to 1800s. We had the pleasure of going and exploring the library of the Colombo Municipal Council. That's how we stumbled upon this information about incinerators, as Sir very briefly touched on. So the story is, before 1930s, we have had Colombo Municipal Council have had an incineration plant. And actually two, not just one in Kirlapana, the other one is in Kotte. Now, imagine having an incinerator or a waste management facility today in Colombo, within Colombo, and also in Kirlapana. It's completely unimaginable. But at that time, Kirlapana was not a populated area. I think the only populated area in that period that is close to the Kirlapana was the Kurunduwatta area, the Cinnamon Gardens. And beyond that, it was not populated at all. So it was an ideal spot to manage waste. So there was no one to complain. But however, waste management activities have always been an expensive affair. When I read, I think the 1938 or 1941, I think the report of the Urban Commission of the Colombo Municipal Council, the report says that waste management through incineration is extremely expensive. So because of that, they are giving up on that. So it's super duper interesting. And I think as Professor touched upon, the waste management discourse in Sri Lanka have always been a nuisance-based one that sort of considers waste to be something that should not be looked at or managed. by someone else. So the moment that you produce waste, it's somebody else's. And I think we also, as citizens of Sri Lanka, and of course the global readers, should consider how and what happens to the waste that goes out of your house. Because ultimately somebody has to manage this. And currently throughout the world, not just in Sri Lanka, waste is not being properly managed. And if you have been to this Karadiana area, it is one of those beautiful areas within an urban area, large paddy field, and it's surrounded by the Veraskanga, the river that Professor mentioned about. Actually, it was one of the politicians from the Barlaskam Urban Council who actually said that he used to swim in it. Of course, now it's a toxic pool now, contaminated by the leachate that comes from the waste dumping site. But it's a beautiful area. And it's such a shame to see that such a beautiful area has been contaminated and destroyed. I don't think that anybody would be able to live in that area even after the waste dumping has been completely stopped, maybe until another 25, 30 years. So one thing that Professor Fernando always says is that it would be great if we can take children who are in the primary to go and show them how and what happens to the waste that is thrown out of your house, and how it is dumped in an area like Karadiana, where we have, I think, uh, 2, 3 mountains of waste that are no less than 29 to 30 meters high. So Professor Fernando always suggests that if this happens, they would get a shock and they would realize how much of a disastrous practice that we have in terms of waste management. Now, Professor, going back to the discourse analysis, later on we also found out that the discourse in terms of discourse regarding solid waste management, this discourse have been evolving throughout, and in the recent times there have been this notion in terms of discourse regarding urban beautification, especially under the previous president Mahinda Rajapaksa and his brother, who was the at the time Secretary of Defense, who actually did a major restoration effort to Colombo city, and how the nuisance narrative was still a part of it. Could you please elaborate on a little bit on this development of discourse management? And also, of course, we also got to know that the municipal councils in Devala, Mount Lavinia and Burlaskam Urban Council also sort of started to look at waste management as a way of income, as a way of resource, which you very briefly mentioned. Could you please elaborate on this a little bit, just a little bit, maybe touching on the green police, the eco police also?
Yeah, so I think now after 1978, I think as all of us know, after introducing open economic liberalization policies, uh, actually I would say that people's consumption patterns have already been changed. So because urban sociologists, they always argue that, we live with a kind of a very uh, uh, a society where there are different, let's say, we belong to different classes, and their consumption patterns uh, are keep on changing. So therefore, at the end, they generate, I would say, different types of garbage at the household level and also at different levels, like even office, even if you go to a common place, right? So the point is, so on one hand, the due to this different consumption patterns, we keep on like producing different types of garbage like plastic and also polythene. Uh, uh, so as a result of that, even different governments, they had a issue of, how to keep the city clean, which is also so important. So as Malit mentioned, so they wanted to make the city more cleaner than before. So therefore, they with the purpose of changing the behavior of the people on one hand, and also to keep the city on the other hand, they came up with the idea of, I would say, like environmental police.
Please.
Because basically, they try to control people's behavior. I would say that, like because earlier, we struggle with we have norms and values, right? So though I mean we normally try to adhere to norms and also values, but sometimes, which is not a must, right? So if we break it, someone will tell something, but when you introduce a kind of a law, right? So you can't throw garbage here, right? And then also at the same time, if they strictly monitor it, right? So then whether you like or not, you have to, right? So you have to do it. So I think so in which is something I would say there are positive aspects, right? Because somehow they try to change your behavior. You can't throw garbage here and there. There are places where you can throw. Or you can get rid of them, and so like for example, now chewing beetle is okay, but you can't split, everywhere, right? So that is also one important one. So the point is, and also, openly smoking cigarette in the environment, that was clearly monitored and also warned. And then, after some time, people were fine, right? And there were interesting cases. So in that way also they try to make the environment, I would say the city, more cleaner than before, right? So the much more, I would say, concern on these aspects. So it's a kind of, I would say, another aspect or change of behavior for some period of time, whether we like or not. They try to somehow force us to change, and also they closely monitor. Right, so they did not ask us to change, but also they force us to change, and they closely monitor what has been happening. So then whether we like or not, somehow we have to adapt to the situation. So as Malit said, so that we already observed in that particular period. So I can remember a very good example. One of my known person was caught throwing a garbage bag into a common place, I think early in the morning around 3 o'clock, by environmental police. And they have filed a case, and that person had to pay 10,000 rupees as a fine.
Okay.
And that person went to the courts and had to pay. So at the end, after that experience, what he said was also very important for me, because I think I already shared this with you. And he said, from here onwards, I'm not going to throw garbage into common places, even if I chew it.
Yes.
Right? So I'm not going to throw it, because the experience that I had, because I had to stay in the premises police for 24 hours the whole day. And so therefore this is what I already learned. So in that way also, somehow, so that has in that way we also expected a kind of a behavioral change, whether we like or not, the method or the way that they have forced us, right? So that is another interesting, I would say, point, or a situation that we experienced at one point of time. Right now,
Yes.
this has already been now changed. This has already been now changed. Right. So so now still we like identified, as we said, we normally we don't identify it as a resource, but some have already identified it as a resource. But at the local level, I think most of the people, they identified it as a I would say, like garbage, which they have to somehow, they don't like to keep, but somehow they want to, discard or dispose or, give it to someone else, right? And just keep away from it. So I think this was something what we experienced during that time, Malit. Yeah. So this environmental police and also because they also try to maintain the cleanliness in the city. So
Yes,
if
sir.
someone has thrown something, they also inquire, who has yeah, done
Done
this,
this.
and yeah. So I think that has already helped the city to make it very clean. And also, as you know, we also have a lot of issues with regard to dengue. And so these are some of the breeding points, as you know, especially after the rain, right? So if you throw plastic cups here and there, so these are some of the breeding spots for dengue mosquitoes. So I think in that way, that has already, not only to keep the city clean, but also there is a direct impact on the health aspect as well, Malik.
So, Professor, now we touched on the important dimensions of social discourse and also on the environmental policy as well. But another area that we did study under the project is the informal waste workers and the informal waste management sector itself. Now, often we see that the informal waste management sector is overlooked and have been labeled as thieves and thugs. And this mistreatment, as also we have also noticed, that happens quite consecutively and quite often, and it seems that we have sort of normalized it. So could you please enlighten us by sharing the findings of the project? How much of a service does the informal waste management sector does to the waste management activities in Sri Lanka, sir?
Yes, Malit. Now, as I said before, we have studied the informal sector with regard to Devila Mount Leda Municipal Council and Bulaskamu Urban Council area.
Yes.
And so our findings have revealed that informal waste managers, they play a key role in managing waste, especially economically viable waste. Now, as all of us know, informal sector waste managers collect economically viable waste from households and businesses. So this is one of our, I mean, general findings. So the collected waste, then they will sell it to large manufacturers or exporters. So that is what normally they do. But with regard to their services, I mean, as we have seen and observed, and it is very clear from the interviews that we have conducted with informal waste collectors, it goes beyond that as processing of economically viable waste. So it requires a significant amount of labor for sorting, cleaning, and storing waste. Another important, I would say, point is that as informal waste workers have taken over large portion of the management of non-biodegradable waste, this saves a large amount of funds and resources of the local councils. Therein save money for the public. So they also play a very hidden service role with regard to waste management in the two selected locations that we have conducted our study. Then also another two important points, Malit, with regard to our findings with informal waste collectors or informal sector. So we have realized that instead of making a payment for the economically viable waste handed over by the residents, I think sometimes they also give not only let's say money, but also sometimes they also give a plastic or plastic basin or some other thing, right? I think which we should discourage.
Mhm.
Because on one hand, they collect economically viable waste, but also on the other hand, instead of giving money, right? So, I mean, giving money is not a problem, but if they give something like a plastic, a basket made out of plastics,
Plastics.
so that will also, yes, that will, harm the environment.
Environment,
So
yeah.
yeah, yeah. So I think so. These are some of the very uh, basic findings with regard to informal waste collectors whom we have interviewed with regard to some of the findings from the interviews that we have conducted with informal waste collectors. But I think, as I said before, their service is vital and also hidden because they also give a very important service to the waste management sector in Sri Lanka, but which is very much hidden, I would say, in the places, locations that we have conducted our study. Yes, Mike.
Yes, I think that's a very concise but very precise description of our findings of the informal waste workers. And I think it's also important to find out so that they are very resourceful, even in the COVID-19 period when everyone was suffering. The local councils and the central government brought in new laws and regulations prohibiting the collection of informal waste. And as a result of this, the informal sector could not collect waste at all for maybe about 3 months. But still, they, instead of completely giving up, they rather utilized the time that they had at hand at the time because of the lockdowns to further process the raw materials that is available to them so they could get a larger gain. For example, if they used to sell wires, they used to further process the wires and get the copper out of it and then sell the copper. So that way they got a higher amount of income once the COVID restrictions got reduced. And also they also got opportunities through the local police stations and the local councils to utilize the vehicles that they have available to them for waste collection to sell and collect essential goods to households in the COVID-19
Yes,
lockdown period. So
Malita, yes. Yeah, Malita, I think you already mentioned few important points. I think
yes,
their service during the COVID-19 period was,
yes,
I think, was hampered, right? Because
yes,
they were not in a position to properly, I would say, like activate, or I would say, because especially the mobile collectors,
collectors.
there are restrictions. Yeah, so the mobility, it was restricted because hoping that or with the intention of minimizing the spreading of COVID. So
Yes,
sometimes some people might identify them as COVID spreaders, and they have already been further marginalized during this COVID-19 period, I think, and as a result of that, the local councils prohibited the informal waste collection. I think that's a very important, I think, point. And also, it was a huge challenge for them, the owners, how to cope with the situation for 1 or 2 years without engaging in their income earning activity. But still, soon after the restrictions were lifted, I think they already moved back to the same income earning activity. I
yes,
think that's a very important one. And also, Malit, I also want to inform one important collaboration which we identified. I think in Burlesgamu, this is a kind of a collaboration of formal, informal
yes,
waste collectors. Yes, Kasalapola. Yeah,
Kasaragod,
so
yes,
I think, yes. Here, actually, the local councils collaborate with informal waste collectors, and they have already helped these people to I mean, the local, the council has, they are the ones who have organized this poller and invited people to bring in the, economically
viable waste.
Viable, yes, waste. And from selected areas to local councils. But the most important point is that instead of paying a payment, actually, for this economically viable waste, the residents were gifted with valuable trees such as jack, mahogany, by the local council. So I think this is also important because now short while ago I said that if there are instances where they give a
Plastics.
basin plastics, yeah, so that will I mean create because it will
Further
this is
pollute.
not for the environment, right?
Yes.
So therefore I think this approach is something important, and also that they have given a space, the local council, and they have encouraged informal collectors to come into one particular place and hand over these economically viable resources. And on the other hand, just to maintain this reciprocal relationship, they have also people have gifted some plants where they can with like valuable trees. So all in all, I think with your input, Malit, we feel that informal sector in Sri Lanka has to be given due diligence and should be facilitated to improve their activities, which
Yes,
we
sir.
have not been seen. I think because they can then render more service to the location, I would say. And this will also, on the other hand, reduce the money the formal sector invest in
Spend. Yeah.
garbage, like waste management. Yes, Malit, yes.
Yes, sir. Thank you so much for that input, and sir, I think now it's time for us to conclude the episode. But before doing so, sir, I think it would be really important for us to touch on the Spirit project, our most recent project that's ongoing. And I think it would be really interesting for the listeners if you can briefly maybe mention about the Spirit project a little bit.
Yes, Malit, thank you. Because as we don't have much time, let me also tell a few words about our new project. The project is called, let me read
The title,
the
sir.
title just to
Yes, it's a long
get
one.
a clear idea about the research. Transformation of waste management practices and policies in South Asia during and after the COVID-19 pandemic. Impact on gender equality and sustainability. So this is the long
The
project
title, yes.
title. So in short form, we call it Spirit.
Spirit. Yeah.
And this is also funded by, yes, Swiss National Science Foundation under the Swiss Program for International Research by Scientific Investigation Team. The project is carried out collaboratively by a team of researchers from the Institute of Geography and Sustainability, University of Lausanne, School of Social Work, Freiburg, University of Applied Sciences of Western Switzerland, so the Federation of Sri Lankan Local Government Authorities, and the Nepal Center for, contemporary research. So we are the researchers, and we can also call us as a consortium with
Yes.
the leadership of Rede Vernon and Sweta. Yes, from University of
Freiburg. No,
Applied
sure.
Sciences.
Applied Sciences of
Yes.
Freiburg. Yeah.
Yeah. And we got together, and now we have implemented the research. Just to briefly mention the objectives of our research, actually, we want to understand what happened during the COVID pandemic in terms of waste management, and what will happen after it, to apprehend the long-term impacts on government and municipal waste policies. Because during the COVID period, the waste management practice have already been changed. So we were forced to
Yes.
change.
Yeah.
So we wanted to see what has happened to the formal and informal waste collectors at that time. And we also think that the crisis moments, COVID can also be identified it as a crisis moments, change something, they change practices, and they might also change policies in the long run. So our project, all in all, actually is trying to look at these changes. So we have already put a very good basis for this project based on the information that we have collected under R4D. So changes can take place at household level, at the level of waste collection, and even at the policy level. So we want to look at how the situation of waste workers, both formal, informal, men and women, have changed during the pandemic and what the ramifications are after the pandemic. So as I said before, R4D has put a it has already helped us to collect the basic information. So now we want to figure out whether this crisis has an impact on laws, policies, even on how policy makers talk about the waste problem during and after COVID. So this is another aspect which we want to explore. And it's also, we have already started the project and it ends in 2025. So we are also happy to bring in another podcast with all the researchers to discuss their findings in the near future with the near future. I think Malik can also organize another podcast with regard to our
Yes,
findings from different countries. Yes.
yes,
Yes.
yes.
So
Thank you so much
before
for giving.
yes, end this, I would like to thank Malik. So you have been with us for the last 5, 6 years, and you learn a lot. We learn a lot. So it's a kind of I would say we have been engaging in multidisciplinary
Yes, definitely.
research as a team. It's a teamwork. So I think we learn a lot. I would like to thank you for organizing this kind of podcast for us to discuss our findings, and also this is a kind of another opportunity for us to disseminate what we have
Yes,
found, and
yes.
also what is the future of our findings. Yes, thank you, Malit. Yes.
Thank you so much, sir, for joining the episode as well. And I think before we conclude, sir, I think it's important to enlighten our audience a little bit about our outputs. So I know that you can't see it really, but this is one of our key outputs. I know that the words are upside down, but it's reads Municipal Solid Waste Management Sri Lanka. It's a book published by the University of Colombo's Press. It's available for anyone who's interested to get hold of the book. You can write to us in our YouTube channel. We have the email address available. You can write to us, and we can, of course, be more than happy to give it to you. And also, we have done a study called Waste Management in Ovita. This is one of the research activities that we have done under the R4D MSWM project, where we studied the low-income settlement in the Deval Mount Lebanon Municipal Council. And they're very interesting waste management activities, would be quite interesting. And also, this is the singular translation of the Professor Fernando's PhD-inspired book. It's called the Post-Tsunami Relocation Activities in Sri Lanka. The book is available both in English and Sinhala, and this is the Sinhalese version for the Sinhalese audience. So I will be putting all the links to these books. And of course, we've also produced a series of working papers and journal articles and abstracts based on the findings of the R4D project. And also now with the Spirit project, we are in the process of making working papers and journal articles. So I'll be putting all of those, the links to these books, as well as the serval archive of the Lausanne University, so that you can get access to these documents and read them. And of course, a singular translation of the previously shown Solid Waste Management Sri Lanka book is now out. I'll be sharing a copy of the book soon. I think the digital version of the Sinhalese book will be quite soon available to you guys. So all of these publications and outputs are they're actually part and parcel of our academic work, but our podcast is an attempt to bring it to the lay people and to disseminate our findings to a larger audience. So thank you again, Professor, for joining with us today. I know that it's a busy day, being a Sunday, and also I think our recording session actually went for more than 1.5 hours. So thank you so much for being patient and joining with us amidst technical difficulties. And thank you also, the audience, for joining with us and listening to our podcast. Do join with us in the next episode, where we'll be having a chat with Professor Upredi from the Nepal Institute of Contemporary Research, who is our Nepali research leader, to get to know more about waste management activities in Nepal. Thank you so much again. Thank you so much, sir. See you guys.
Yeah, thank you, Mali. Thank you. Right.